If you were to look back at your career so far,
Mhm.
what is something that you're particularly proud of?
There's a couple. One that I guess for me is particularly proud, just because it was a huge aha moment. Was we were looking at uh, quantum teleportation, which is the ability to kind of transfer the state of a particle from one place to another. And actually, a colleague of mine, he'd been asked a nice question at a conference. So he was at a conference, and experimentalists came to him, and he'd done a nice experiment on teleportation, and he kind of asked what I think he thought was a pretty innocent question to my collaborator Danny, which was, "Oh, how does this relate to this other effect steering that Danny and I had thought a lot about? So it's another type of non-locality." And that we were kind of had spent a lot of we were kind of building up our expertise in this direction, and this experimentalist Paul Quiet, he kind of asked Danny, what's the relationship? I think assuming there'll be a very quick answer, and I guess Danny couldn't answer, and then he came back and we were discussing, and then we thought, oh, it will be easy, and then we couldn't answer it, and it took us an amazingly long time until we finally kind of understood the right way to look at the problem. So we were just looking at everything from the wrong direction, or
Mhm.
there was one ingredient that we just didn't see. And so finally, when we had the final idea, and I was visiting Barcelona and I was about to leave, I had like an hour to go or something like this, and we were sat at a cafe, and then finally the penny dropped, and we were like, oh god, like that is the that's the answer. And it was just so blindingly obvious after the fact that we could have kicked ourselves for having how long we spent kind of going round and round in circles. And so for me, this sticks out because it was nice. And then we were, went through that whole phase where you're like, okay, if it was this obvious to in hindsight, if it was this obvious to us in hindsight, then probably someone else knew this.
Mhm.
And so then we were trying to do our kind of diligence to make sure that, could we find other instances where someone had made this connection? And we kind of came to the conclusion that no,
Mhm.
it wasn't done. And so we wrote this up, and and the nice thing is that once we saw this connection, so once we understood this formal connection between these two phenomena, um, then it immediately allowed us to basically import all of the mathematical framework that we'd been developing for steering. We had a certain way of thinking about it, in a geometrical nature, and that allowed us then to import all of this into the way we were thinking about teleportation, which
Mhm.
for us was really powerful. And then this led to kind of lots of follow up work. So this for me, I was kind of proud because it was two important topics, and seeing this connection between the pair of them in this nice way, I think. Was something that it was nice to achieve, and it was, yeah, it was. I'm still proud of it even to today,
That's
basically.
fantastic.